morning and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in our flagship studios over at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today also on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, we are on Birmingham Area Municipal Access and on 88.1 WBFH The Biff. Today via Facebook Live, we are broadcasting all over the world with our friends over at the West Bloomfield Parks. Facebook.com/WBParks. Go ahead, give them a like as you enjoy our edition of the Oakland County Megacast today on their Facebook page. And as always, joining me from her home studio in Keego Harbor is Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler,
Ronnie.
I have to tell you, did you see the big news here in Bloomfield Township about the attempted bank robbery?
I did, yes, I saw that this morning. Somebody went ahead and decided to park their car inside the bank.
So my husband and I were just at Nino Savaggio's doing some grocery shopping, and when we were leaving, I needed gas in my car, and he was like, "Oh, there's a gas station right there, so we'll get it afterwards." But then when we were leaving, he forgot to get gas. But then we get a little bit further down the road, and we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It was like 7. Police cruisers with their going lights and sirens back to the area, and because we were trying to make it to Costco, and I said, we got to turn around and follow them. He's like, but we don't have enough gas. And I said, but if you would have stopped for gas, we'd have enough gas. But had we stopped for gas, we would have been right across the street during the action, watching all of the excitement unfold there in Bloomfield Township.
Well, that would have been a very exciting evening, definitely. It could have been, wow, that guy really doesn't know how to drive. That's not a parking space. Stay outside the bank. You're supposed to go in, make a quiet entrance. And over here, this guy is like, no, I'm going to smash right into it.
Oh my gosh, I hate missing news. So, but just so people know that what had happened yesterday afternoon is the bank at Telegraph and Maple, an individual allegedly tried to attempt to rob the bank by ramming his SUV into the front of the bank, but then he couldn't escape because his vehicle got stuck. But I believe he had like a bulletproof vest on and like a bulletproof hat, so he was there for business, but they were able to capture him because he didn't have a getaway car at that point in time, because when he rammed the bank, he couldn't get it back out.
Yeah, you're ramming a bank in a mid-size SUV, and you're expecting that the impact of hitting a physical building that's already pretty well fortified is going to destroy your vehicle. You're not really thinking that through there, are you, buddy?
I will say I was disappointed because I was, hey, had you just not forgot to stop for gas, we'd be okay, or we had enough gas, Yeah. But but the good thing is, of course, they did arrest the suspect. That's a 37-year-old a man from out of the Detroit area, and no one was injured, which is really the great news, because yesterday there was sad news out of Miami, Florida. 2 FBI agents were killed yesterday in the line of duty trying to serve a search warrant. So it's very dangerous, and every situation is scary, into which these law enforcement officers have to face each and every day.
Yeah, so luckily no one got injured yesterday in the process of that attempted bank robbery, and there was a swift and quick arrest of the person so that they can't cause any harm anywhere else in the immediate future, and everyone got out of that safely. That's always good news.
It definitely is. And when we hear of these situations with the FBI agents that were killed, Tyler, it kind of brings up these memories. So I know my husband finally went public with the information last year. He's a private guy and kind of held the information close to his vest all his life. But my husband's dad was the first African-American FBI agent killed in the line of duty. And last year they did a story on it on Fox 2, but his sister also wrote a book about it, Memorial Star, in honor of his dad and his dad's life as well. But so when these stories come out about the agents that are killed in the line of duty, it kind of hits close to home. And we have to remember and recognize the sacrifice that so many of these agents and these law enforcement officers do each and every day. It's so hard for these agencies right now, Tyler, to do recruiting because of the backlash that's going on and the thoughts and the sentiments from the public. But we have to understand that there are people behind those badges and they have families as well. So our condolences to the agents and their families in Miami, because even though it's all the way in Miami, it does impact so many other people as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, recruiting has been very difficult for law enforcement agencies over the last several months, and over the really even beyond that, because of recent incidents where some bad people have created bad examples from within the profession, and like anything else, that can make a bad impression on people beyond just the immediate group of people that are fulfilling that job and doing so in a decent manner.
I will say, I've been reading my sister-in-law's book because my husband had it first, and then I haven't had a chance to really read through it. And it really is a good book about the impact that some of these deaths of some of these individuals have on the families as well. So her book is Memorial Star, for those that may be interested or that have loved ones in the law enforcement arena as well. So, but with that, Tyler, let's go ahead and jump into the latest headlines of the day. Michigan is making strides on nursing home vaccinations. Every person who wants a coronavirus vaccine who lived in a skilled nursing facility in Michigan has had the chance to get at least the first dose. That's according to Dr. Jonay Caldoun, the state's chief medical executive. So as of January 28th, 104,209 doses of COVID-19 vaccines has been injected into the arms of the residents and the staff. By the end of this month, Caldoun said she expects all of the staff and residents at the state's 4,400 long-term care facilities, which also includes nursing homes, assisted living, and skilled nursing facilities, as well as adult foster care homes and homes for the aged, will have had the chance to get at least the first dose of the vaccine. One thing that still is unclear, though, is what that might mean for those strict visitation rules at nursing homes and other long-term care facilities that have kept their families separated for 11 months now, because there are so many people that are saying that that is having a huge impact as well on their loved ones.
The lack of visitation has certainly had a major impact on the mental health, and that's connected to the physical health of those that have been in these nursing home facilities and adult care facilities and so on throughout this pandemic, having had extremely strict visitation rules. And hopefully the vaccination of those that are working and living in these facilities or being treated in these facilities will allow for more people to be able to come in and visit their families, even if it's on a limited basis in person, because they have been struggling through these last 11 months, almost a year at this point, not being able to see their family in person and embrace their family in a way that they normally would have been able to do so before the pandemic.
Yeah, you know what, Tyler? This is definitely one area I think that we have failed throughout the
Absolutely.
pandemic, the beginning, but also the middle as well. And let's hope that some of our elected leaders, as they started to learn more, they do better, because really the major portion of the deaths that we're seeing reported are coming from some of these facilities. So let's hope they start to do a little bit better in this arena. Hey, a Michigan superintendent calls for increasing required school days. So kids, listen up. Michael Rice Michigan State Superintendent wants lawmakers to increase the number of required school days in the wake of COVID-19, saying more time is the clearest need for students. So he made that comment during a joint hearing of the House and Senate Education Committees. The meeting came as schools across the state grapple with how to offer in-person instruction and teach students amid fears of the spreading virus. So Michigan schools have been required to provide at least 180 days of instruction. That number was too low even before COVID-19 hit. That's according to Rice. So with the virus overhauling education and leaving dozens of districts with only online learning for nearly a year, most students are receiving less instruction time than in any similar period previously. But one thing Rice didn't say is he didn't identify how many days should be added to the current requirement of that 180-day mark.
One problem with that is that, and this is something we touched on earlier on this week, or late last week, is the absence of standardized testing or just regular testing that is there as a benchmark to determine the quality of the learning that's being done in the schools at that time for each grade level. And to have that not be in place, you're not really sure how much of their regular education that these kids are losing, or if they are at all. I think it's most likely that they are, because of the number of students that have been struggling with the transition to distance learning and online learning and haven't had that in-person instruction, especially the kids that haven't been able to have additional help with their learning on top of their regular school day. That the learning deficit is most likely there if you put two and two together. But to not have a benchmark of how much exactly that is, it's got to make a decision to add more days should that happen, or to modify these particular kids' lesson plans going forward in order to help bridge that gap. It's going to be tough to measure that because they're not doing testing in this particular school year.
I will say, Tyler, I don't know how summer break even came about, because when you enter the workforce, you don't get summer break. So maybe the kids go year round. If we're going to start preparing them for the real world, well, the real world is you have to work year round. So maybe that's something they should look at with our kids as well. I'm sure. Of course, I can say that now that I'm not in school.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm fine with it now. Of course, if you ask me in the past, I'm going to be vehemently against it. But I'm fine with that right now, and I think that that's another solution that could possibly be there for this particular school year. Is maybe they extend the school year through the summer, or a couple months into the summer, and shorten that break in order to help bridge the gap of the losses that may be there and make that up. It may require extra time that pushes you into the summer, eliminates that break, which would be great for catching the kids up. Unfortunately, would be even more stressing on the educators who have already been working around the clock all throughout this past year dealing with the pandemic.
Well, colleges already offer summer classes.
They do.
I took them every year as well. And but with that, some will say that it's going to lessen that gap in learning because you haven't been in class. But here's the other issue that we're already seeing, as you just indicated, Tyler, is the issue of teachers. So more Michigan teachers are dropping out of the profession as this pandemic drags on, because a rising number of teachers are retiring or leaving the profession early during the COVID-19 pandemic, deepening Michigan's long-running educator shortage, just as more districts are reopening classrooms and asking faculty to lead both online and in-person classes. State data on school employee retirements from the last 5 years show more educators are retiring mid-year than in previous years. Retirements in September through December were up 42 to 71% over the same period in the previous 4 years. That's according to the Michigan Education Association. So when teachers must quarantine or get COVID-19 during the school year, that means school officials have had to find replacements for at least 10 to 14 days. Same goes for bus drivers, food service workers, and custodians. And in some districts, teachers and other staff members are taking 12 weeks off as allowed under the Family and Medical Leave Act. Now, the governor recognizes some of these issues with teachers and the support staff. So she did reveal plans to award previously approved grants of up to $500 each for teachers and support staff. I know some educators, which I believe you do as well, Tyler. I don't know their sentiments, but they kind of laugh at that. Really? That's not going to help us at all, because it's like they're so stressed out, because they are having to not only trying to teach people in class, but also try to teach those remotely as well. And for some of them, their days are getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah, and that's not going to sweeten the deal for them. You might as well just walk into the classroom and be like, hey, can I offer you a nice egg in this trying time? It doesn't mean anything. For $500 for the amount of work that they've been doing over this past year doesn't even come close to being even a percentage of close to making up for that lost time, for that extra stress, for the extra work that they've put in. Look, these teachers have been in harm's way throughout all of this. They have been in person and not in person. They've been surrounded by kids at times and have had to do extra work to flip their lesson plan to being to being entirely virtual, flip it to being hybrid, flip it back to virtual, flip it to being entirely in person. They've had to maneuver through all of this throughout the pandemic, and even before that, they didn't have nearly the respect that they deserved, if any of it. So for a lot of these teachers that are at the age or at the point in their career where they are able to retire, or they can take an out and get their teacher pension maybe at a lower rate than they would have had if they stay another 10 years, why not get out now when it's not going to get any better. The government doesn't seem to care enough to help even before these issues were in place. And I'm not running the risk of getting sick by going back into school where the kids are already sometimes not on their best behavior, and the parents don't seem to do anything to intervene half the time. A lot of these teachers are frustrated, and deservingly so. And the state, coming back and saying, well, what if we give you grants for up to $500 each? That's up to $500. That's not $500 per teacher altogether. That's if you apply, if you get approved, you may get $500. That doesn't mean anything to them. They need actual protections. They need actual help from the state government, the State Department of Education, and the Federal Department of Education that they simply have not gotten.
So many facets and angles to the conversation. And a lot of people very passionate about the conversation as well, Tyler. But as always, you can find the latest headlines on civiccentertv.com. Click on coronavirus. There you'll find the latest headlines. But also at the top of the page, we have direct links to resources that you may want to check out, such as the CDC, the state of Michigan, as well as Oakland County and our local municipalities. Again, that's on civiccentertv.com. With that, we're going to take a quick break. On the back side of the break, though, we have a great lineup for you. And first on deck is going to be the director for the Movement Disorders Clinic at Beaumont Hospital. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, Or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/containcovid.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. Just as a reminder, you can catch Tyler and myself Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon, civiccentertv.com, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, we want to say thank you because a portion of your fee goes to help support programming such as this. So you can tune us in channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. But if you're also driving around, tune us into the radio, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And right now there is a lot of attention on COVID-19 and the vaccine, but life continues for every other individual and some of the other health issues that they are experiencing that. And they can't just pause their health issues. And so joining us now on the show is Dr. Adam Kuhlman. He's the director of Movement Disorders Clinic at Beaumont Hospital. Doctor, thank you for being with us.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So when we're talking about movement disorders, what exactly are we talking about? Because immediately what comes to mind for me is Parkinson's disease.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So, movement disorders is a subdivision of the field of neurology, and kind of broadly speaking, movement disorders include neurological conditions that cause either too much movement or too little movement. And so Parkinson's disease is, one of the things that I treat, mainly in my practice. Other common examples of things that we treat often are things like essential tremor, other forms of tremor, tics and Tourette syndrome, restless leg syndrome, and others.
So how has your area of expertise been impacted due to the pandemic? Because we do know a lot of people are just afraid to go into a hospital setting or even a doctor's office to try to get help from some of these issues. Or if they are in the beginning stages, do you see some of your patients reluctant to identify and go to a doctor right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, especially originally, we're going now almost a year ago, I saw a big drop off in the volume of patients that I was seeing on a day-to-day basis. Kind of midsummer into the fall, things kind of seemed to return back to normal. And then as we kind of saw that spike in cases again around Thanksgiving time, that volume kind of dropped off again. We transitioned over to doing a lot of telehealth visits, which has been very helpful. It's been a learning curve for everybody, but I think that that's really added a valuable resource for people to be able to stay at home, but still be able to seek medical care for some of these chronic conditions that they're dealing with.
So tell us about the telehealth experience for you, and how are you able to treat some of these patients? Because even for us here on the show, some people just aren't tech savvy. So how do you try to not only navigate your health advice, but also walk them through some of these technical issues as well?
Yeah, it has definitely been a challenge, I will admit. I think that we've all been forced to jump onto that train and learn along the way. The other component is, a large portion of my practice is composed of patients that are older than the age of 65, and some of them prefer just not to have to bother with some of the telehealth, type of things. And so we've adapted. We're trying to offer other avenues, and so there's still some in-person visits. We've done some telephone visits, and then the video visits, which we've tried to make as easy as possible. And I think for the large part, it's become much more acceptable for people to be able to get the help that they need.
I'm thinking about this because I do have some friends that are elderly and trying to say, hey, I'm just a text person now. Like, I don't want to talk to you on the phone. You need to text me. And like trying to get them to text, they're like, no, they're going to call. So I'm thinking about you and your staff, and then you have the serious issue that you're trying to help them with, but you're, faced with some of these technological issues, but also it's the mindset issue as well on top of that. But if we can go back, so what are some of the signs of people who are in the beginning stages? What should they be looking for?
In terms of?
If they're noticing tremors and something's just off with their body.
Right. So, that's, what I'm here for. I think a lot of people's mindset first goes to, oh my gosh, I have tremors, this is Parkinson's disease type of a thing, because that's what a lot of people identify, tremor with most commonly. But there's, a number of different conditions and things that can cause tremor. And that's why it's important to be able to seek out some of that expert evaluation. And that's, part of the reason why we have a movement disorder division here at Beaumont.
So with that, as far as individuals, what is the age range that we're looking at? Because I've had families members that have experienced some of these issues, but we associate it with people that are elderly. Is that always the case?
No, in fact, it isn't. I mean, when it comes to Parkinson's, on average, we see the average age of onset somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 years old. That number shifts around a little bit depending on what sources you read. But in the case of something like essential tremor, we see, what's called a bimodal distribution, meaning that we see new cases in people that are in their teens and maybe 20s, and then new cases in people who are still working in their 50s. And so it doesn't simply affect people who are elderly. It can affect people that are younger as well. But we do see that there are increasing numbers with age.
So with that, you're saying there's a wide age group. Is there a sign that people should look for, or can some of these things happen where it's just like this moment of time, nothing for them to worry about? Or could some of these symptoms and signs be that there's a greater problem, and that's when they should search out medical expertise, such as what you offer?
So, yeah, I mean, very often these conditions that I treat, start, very mildly and are very slowly, kind of progressive in nature. So, you may notice that there's a little bit of abnormal movement, a little bit of abnormal shaking in the hands when, drinking a cup of coffee, or when, handwriting or doing some other kind of simple task with the hands. And that might initially come and go and not really interfere with any daily activities. And then as time goes on, that tremor may become more prominent and start interfering with daily activities a little bit more. And it's at that point where we really, start to, encourage people to seek medical attention, and because there are treatments that are available.
So what are some of those treatments? I know earlier you mentioned medication may help as well.
Sure. So a lot of that depends obviously on the specific diagnosis, but there, based on those diagnoses, there are a number of medications that are available for things like essential tremor. We often use, medications that are called something called propranolol, or another medication that's called primidone. And for many people, that those are sufficient to, reduce and dampen the tremor that they're experiencing by, 50 to 80%, something that's, meaningful in terms of being able to, have legible handwriting, being able to drink from an open glass or soup from a spoon, for example.
It's interesting because I remember when back during election time, we were talking with the clerk and just talking about your signature and how it could change over time when you're having some of these medical issues. So it's great that you mentioned that. But can some of these issues be treated with physical therapy, or is this solely something that needs to be handled through medication or surgery?
So yeah, there's a broad range of treatment options that are available. In the setting of something like essential tremor, we try to, employ, a multidisciplinary approach. Same goes for Parkinson's disease for that matter, where there's, medications obviously, but there's physical therapy, occupational therapy. There's a number of kind of non-pharmacological interventions to, help with some of those daily tasks. There's, weighted silverware and utensils, kind of altered writing implements to be able to make that task a little bit easier. Different kinds of software on your computer, speech to text and things like that, so you don't have to be using the keyboard or mouse quite as much. And then there's, for when those strategies fail, then we do have some surgical options that are also available.
Doc, how did you get into this line of medical practice? Because you just seem so young. You're like Terry Hauser. Where's your bow tie?
I've been accused of looking young in the past, that's for sure. So, the field of neurology was always, very attractive to me. The neurological system is, so wonderfully complex and elegant in nature. And I loved the kind of physical diagnosis of things and movement of sort. I just took that to an entirely different level for me. And then what kind of sealed the deal was the first time that I saw someone with essential tremor who had DBS that was implanted. DBS stands for deep brain stimulation. And I saw this person who had this just really terrible tremor, very disabling, couldn't eat, couldn't drink, couldn't write, really needed assistance with a lot of daily activities. And we, did this initial programming, turned on this device, and you just see this tremor melt away, and kind of give this person their life back. And it was this sense of just immediate gratification that, we just don't really get very many other places in medicine. And so I saw that and I was like, I'm hooked, I got to get more of that. And so, and the rest is history.
Really, it could be life-changing for that individual, right?
It truly can, yes.
And so when you have patients that come to you and they have this dread about what their future may be, what do you tell them? Like there is hope at the end of these diseases?
Yes, there's a number of different things that we can do for these types of conditions. And that's one of those kind of misconceptions that I think, a lot of people come into the office with, that especially for things like tremor, some people refer to this as, this is their family shakes. This is, there's a very strong kind of family history of this type of tremor with them. And they just don't, they're of the mindset that there's nothing to be done. This is just kind of how things are. And that, really nothing could be further from the truth. And so there is that kind of that light at the end of a tunnel.
So when you mentioned about the family traits, how much of this is genetic versus lifestyle?
So for essential tremor, we see that there's a family history in about 50% of people. Again, that figure, varies a little bit from source to source, but, we see there's about 10 million people in the United States that have essential tremor, and, half of them have this family history. We, don't fully understand what causes essential tremor. We see some people with this family history, some don't. People who do have that family history have been able to identify some genes, but not been able to identify them in others. And so this is a subject of ongoing research.
So I'm sorry for all the questions, but this is the first time we've had you on, or anyone that I can remember talking about these issues, which are really prevalent in so many families as well. But is it hard to get information out to the public about this issue? Because we're very familiar with Parkinson's disease just simply because of some of the high profile individuals that it's been associated with. But some of the other diseases that causes these symptoms, is it hard to break through to get your message out during these times?
These times, yeah, I think especially it's been a little bit more difficult. And, it's one of those things, again, where this is something that kind of just flies underneath the radar for many, that, the tremor might be very mild, nothing more than really a nuisance. And then as time goes on, that might escalate and become more significant. And we, really try to, engage in some outreach, but yeah, it is certainly a challenge for us.
So is it important for people that are starting to experience some of the symptoms, is early detection and early treatment better, or does it play out the same one way or another?
Yeah, the kind of unfortunate reality of some of this is that we don't have anything that's, what we would refer to as disease modifying, nothing that necessarily slows down, the course of things or changes, the future prognosis. However, we have a number of interventions that can make a significant difference in day-to-day functioning for people. So from that standpoint, I think that early detection is important, because that means that we can intervene and give some of that life back during those years when they may otherwise have not had any other options. So I don't know if I'm able to share my screen. I do have a short little video to kind of show you an example of what that might be.
I think we can share your screen, but let's see if we can bring Larry in. He's our Zoom producer. Can you try to share it now?
Yeah, I made him the co-host. He should be able to do it now.
Okay.
So let me share this with you. This is a gentleman with essential tremor, and this task that's just like addressing an envelope can be really quite problematic and difficult. And also, again, here, if you're able to see this with me, the task of just drinking from a mug and bringing it up to the lips is, really quite difficult. Requires a little bit of steadiness and stabilization of that mug. It's not difficult to imagine, some people, would refrain from going out to a restaurant because they're concerned about, spilling all over themselves or onto the table and things like that. And this is after a therapy that we do as deep brain stimulation, the same gentleman with stimulation on. And this is the thing that I mentioned to you that really kind of got me into this field to begin with, that handwriting is substantially more legible. And another thing that I think is really quite powerful, he has the ability with a patient programmer to turn the device on and off. And again, you kind of just see that melt away, which is really just quite powerful and amazing. At least it is to me. So thanks for letting me share that.
I'm with you. I think that's absolutely amazing. And with that, so when you say he's able to turn the device on and off, so this is something that's implanted in an individual.
That's correct. Yeah. So that the therapy that I was showing is something that's called deep brain stimulation. This is a surgical therapy that involves implantation of a very small electrode into the brain itself, into an area that's called the thalamus. The electrode's about the size of a strand of thin spaghetti, and then that's connected to a kind of pacemaker device that's located in the chest that delivers a very small, high-frequency pulsatile electrical stimulation that is able to achieve that tremor effect that you just witnessed.
I'm sitting here in awe of you right now. But with that, what is the turnaround time? Like from the time that they have the surgery to the time that they see the improvements?
So the surgery itself is done in 2 stages, about 2 weeks apart. The first surgery requires an overnight stay. And then the second surgery is an outpatient surgery where it's actually connecting that electrode to the implantable pulse generator. That's the battery and computer. And then shortly after that, you come into the clinic with someone like myself, and we turn it on and program it for the first time. And so we're seeing, from the time you first have the surgery to the time you see someone like me, it's about a month after the surgery that we're doing the initial programming.
So what's the long time recovery? Do they have to come back every so many months, or is a second or a third, fourth surgery required so many years down the line?
So nothing that's in comparison to that first surgery that they undergo. There are sometimes some periodic battery replacements that are required once every 5 to 7 years. There's some batteries that are FDA approved out as long as 15 years. And the recovery just immediately post-surgery is, again, in that kind of 4 to 6 week range, where there's some limitations in terms of return to work, but people are still able to go about their daily activities in the meantime.
Well, Dr. Kuhlman, I am so sorry for taking up so many of your times, but I find you and this work fascinating because you're making such a huge difference in so many people's lives. Anything maybe I didn't ask about, because you are the expert, that you want to share with our listeners and our viewers before I let you go?
Just that if anybody is experiencing any of those symptoms, you can learn more at the beaumont.org/neurology website. You can also contact our clinic. The phone number is 855-863-8761.
I didn't even realize that there was such a clinic. Again, you're the director of the Movement Disorders Clinic at Beaumont Hospital. We so appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. I appreciate being here. But also, what great work that you're doing. So making a difference, because the one stat, up to 10 million Americans estimated to have essential tremor. So that is a good statistic to know, that people experiencing some of these symptoms really need to reach out, even during the middle of a pandemic, and ask for help. Yeah. So, please, seek medical attention if needed, for sure. Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we return, we'll be checking in with Emily Lawler. She is the lead reporter on the statewide team for MLive on the Oakland County Megacast. This is the Megacast.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Parks COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
As rivals, we don't always see eye to eye.
Like who scored the best recruits?
Who's gonna be who?
And whether we wear green
Or blue. But one thing we can all agree on, to help stop the spread of COVID-19, wear a mask.
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 The ball's in your court, Michigan.
Welcome back to the Megacast. As a reminder for those tuning in for the very first time, you can always catch previous episodes or just individual interviews on civiccentertv.com. Just click on the Megacast for the full episodes or on demand for the individual interviews, but you can also follow us on social media as well. We also want to give a shout out right now to the West Bloomfield Parks Department for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page as well. Joining us now on the show, Emily Lawler?
Yep.
Lawler. She's a lead reporter over at the statewide team for MLive, but you're also a baker. How do those two come together?
lot. And, you know, when you're reporting on politics every day, it's nice to come home and have something baking to do, I guess.
Well, before we get to your baking side gig, because I can't even seem to cut and slice the cookies from, you know, the grocery store without burning them. But before we get to that side, let's jump into the politics here in the state of Michigan, because there's so much going on right now. Let's start with the governor. There's already kind of rumors and talk out there about her reelection. Do you think she's going to run for reelection? Because I really thought she had her sights on higher positions, probably within the Biden cabinet.
Yeah, well, I do think that she's poising to run for reelection. Two big pieces of news out of the governor's office in the last week. One was her State of the State address. So she really put this emphasis on sort of a return to bipartisanship, especially after some of the vitriol that we saw during the 2020 election, the presidential election, which she was obviously helping Joe Biden. She was one of his national campaign co-chairs. But yeah, so she sort of tried to strike that tone again. And it sounded, frankly, a lot more like 2018 campaign trail Gretchen Whitmer, where she wasn't necessarily, you know, it wasn't hitting back against Trump, which she spent a lot of the last year and a half doing. It was more, how do we move forward for Michigan? And I want to work with Republicans to do that, was sort of the crux of the message there. And then the second piece of information that I would take a hard look at is that her campaign finance reports from her campaign came in this week, and she has raised just a war chest, so much money. You know, to put it in perspective, she raised $5.5 million so far this cycle, and we are 2 years out, or a year and a half out from this election. So at that time period, at the comparable time in 2012, which is, you know, halfway through Snyder's first term, he had raised under $1 million. So, you know, 5 times that is what she has going toward this cause right now. So I think it is a pretty strong indicator that she's looking to run again for governor in 2022. And I think it would be hard to, you know, sort of pull her away from Michigan. She's always said that, you know, Michigan's her top priority and her favorite place to be. So those cabinet positions you mentioned haven't really seemed to include Whitmer too much in the speculation.
Well, of course she says that, but we all know that had she been pegged as the vice president nominee, she would have said, bye, Michigan. She would not turn down that opportunity, but she just didn't have the experience, I think, that they were looking for at the time. And then, yes, she is a female, but she is not a minority female, which the Biden ticket, I think, was really looking into as well. Why do you think she's been able to raise so much money?
I think part of it is her growing national profile. You know, we have a governor who is on CNN and MSNBC all the time. There was a period of time this spring where I felt like anytime you click the remote, you're going to run into either Governor Whitmer or maybe Attorney General Dana Nessel or Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. Of course, I think that Donald Trump tweeting about all of them all the time just drew more national attention into our state. So, you know, I think that big national profile has probably helped her raise money not only from in Michigan, but from outside Michigan, which is something that I'm still crunching the numbers on over the next couple days here.
Yeah, Emily, we want to say thank you for taking time to be with us. But one show the governor has not done, from my understanding, is our show. We're too small for her, per se. But I wouldn't be as easy as some of our mainstream media people have been on her as well. So with that, though, I have to say I'm really fascinated by what's happening behind the scenes in the Democratic Party, because you have Mike Duggan in the city of Detroit, but you also have Mark Hackel, the Macomb County executive. And Mark Hackel has not been a big supporter of some of Gretchen Whitmer's decision-making during this pandemic. What also makes you think, is he going to run against her? But they're within the same party.
Yeah, so the latest I have on that from Mark Hackel is outdated, but I was on Off the Record with him, I think over the summer, and we asked him about that. And and he didn't have any plans to run at that time.
They always say that.
Myself, I'm not sure if it was the summer or the fall, but in any case, it might be worth checking in with him again. I think that Mark Hackel, frankly, would be an attractive candidate not only to Democrats, but to Republicans. He's sort of on that moderate edge. He has been probably the most vocal Democrat who's opposed some of Governor Whitmer's orders coming out and sort of done a lot to draw attention to what he sees as contradictions in them and sort of the unpredictable nature that some of them have had, not just, in the most recent shutdown, but over the last almost year at this point.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to go through her campaign finance reports, just so people know, like, I'm a geek. And so some nights when I can't sleep, that's what I do is I go through their campaign finance reports, because you want to look at who's donating and then you track them to the businesses. But also I like to see how much they're spending and where they're spending it, who their donors are, and this, that, and the other. And I will say, if people were paying closer attention to Eric Smith, which I was hitting myself in the head over this one, it was so obvious that there was something going on with him and the business person. I forget the guy's name, but he hasn't officially been charged in the investigation with Eric Smith, who of course was the Macomb County prosecutor, who just entered a plea of guilty as well. So these campaign finance reports are open to the public, but they are very telling as well if you take the time to look through them. But knowing that too, what do you think is going to be her slogan going forward? Because of course we know it was fix the roads. Now it's like, let's fix the road ahead, because things are changing with the pandemic. And she doesn't have Trump right now to kind of point the finger to, because at some point in time, she has to recognize Trump gave her a bigger platform than she would have had he not been pointing the finger at her all these months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that over the last year, we sort of saw her trying to think of how to phrase this. Her guiding principle in the campaign was, I'll take your cue, fix the roads. But yeah, it did sort of morph into Trump isn't doing enough to stop COVID, right? I mean, she was one of the first people who took that platform nationally. She was sort of a trendsetter. She was one of the first people to speak out against his sort of lack of a plan, to ask for more federal guidance. Obviously, now she's in a position where she wants to promote that she's partnering with the Biden administration. So it's a different feel for her, certainly. And as far as fix the roads ahead, I think that she was her catchphrase she unveiled during the State of the State. But I mean, it's going to be hard to live up to, frankly. She has this $3.5 billion plan for state roads, but frankly, the roads that people are the most upset about and the potholes that you're the most frustrated about probably aren't state roads. They're probably roads under your local authority, and those just haven't gotten any more funding. So she did indicate during the State of the State that she would be willing to do a plan that's previously been proposed that would let locals use gas and registration taxes and fees to raise some of their own revenue. So that could be one avenue, but that is not fixing the roads, right? I think that there's sort of that depends on local ability to raise those taxes and fees, and it would depend on whether locals in every area of the state wanted to do it. So there won't be a sort of a smooth road, if you will, to a reelection campaign necessarily, and she's gonna I think need to explain that to voters when the reelection campaign starts in earnest.
So Emily, I will say, when I say roads, because I was brought up that that's a bad word. Like, you're not allowed to say it. And the fact that she says it in a campaign, I'm like, are you still allowed to say that? She must be allowed to say it, right? You're using it in headlines and this, that, and the other. But it's still like I hear my parents, that's a naughty word, so I'm like, I can't say it.
I don't mind it. I'm not going to lie. There are worse words that happen in my house.
Right. Like the B word. I remember the first time I heard Oprah use it on her show, and it was during the daytime. I'm like, I don't think that's allowable, but they're using it. I don't know. Well,
I would never want to offend anyone. So.
But with that too, though, because I think the politics really are fascinating in the state of Michigan and what goes on behind the scenes. That's really the deal making with our politicians. And now we're seeing this huge, it's nothing new about the Republicans and the Democrats, but typically behind the scenes, they'll kind of come together on some of these issues. But Shirky seems to be like, no, we're not playing games. We're not ready to play nice in the sandbox with the Democrats and Governor Whitmer. Can they come together?
Yeah, I think that's the question. Governor Whitmer has gone about, I think, as far as she can go in terms of controlling this pandemic through first her executive orders, and then when the underpinnings of those were struck down by the courts, her MDHHS director, she just appointed a new MDHHS director. But, even that could be thrown into limbo. Republicans are threatening to sort of withhold appointment approval through their advise and consent process. So, she's kind of hitting this wall, I think. And then, some of the things she's looking at now are economic recovery from COVID that necessarily depends on the legislature to appropriate some of those dollars. So even the dollars that, the federal government is saying, like, hey, Michigan, here's money that you can use to help recover from COVID. She has ideas, she has programs she'd like to put them into, but the legislature holds the purse strings and really has a lot of say over that. And they've already sort of set themselves up to use that as a bargaining chip, if you will, and not just make that an easy okay on that money. So I think that really is the question, especially after her State of the State address, where she, like I said, returned to this really bipartisan, let's work together message. It takes two to make that happen. So if the Republicans don't decide that they'd also like to go in that vein, it could really complicate things for her and could complicate Michigan's economic recovery.
I think the next 6 months are really going to be interesting here in the state of Michigan. And just like what you were saying, it's about the money, because businesses are still struggling. You have students that are not playing high school sports. That whole campaign and that lawsuit, I think it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out during this whole entire fiasco. But on top of that too, we have the Snyder administration, Dana Nessel, what's going on in Flint and that investigation, because I think there are a lot of legal loopholes in that one that we're going to see play out. But on top of this, it's the economic recovery, which really needs to be front and center, I think, for the governor going forward. She needs to be able to turn Michigan's economy around, because when you have people going to Michigan, Indiana, and other states nearby just to be able to go out to a restaurant or to play hockey or to do some of these other things, that I think is going to impact her reelection as well.
It's hard to say because we are so far out. 15 things could change between now and then. So, yeah. It's been interesting to watch sort of the flashpoints in this debate evolve. I remember in the spring, there was, of course, like Operation Haircut, I think, was the barbers protesting on the Capitol lawn. And then, of course, we sort of morphed into, the hullabaloo over the on-again, off-again nature of fall sports. Gym owners were a flashpoint. Restaurants were a flashpoint when they were one of the only industries that was still closed. And then, we've landed on high school winter sports as the next sort of flashpoint in this debate. So, it's a tug and pull, right? So I talked to a health expert in Kent County and was kind of poking around on what we learned from fall sports and how that informs what's happening with winter sports. And, the counterpoint to let them play is that I talked to a health expert who said that they have the data and the contact tracing to show that, some participation in fall sports kept kids out of the classroom. So, you're kind of deciding on all these public health measures, you're prioritizing. And, the governor at this point is prioritizing getting kids in seats in classrooms over winter sports. Although there's this rumbling that things might change. But, it's hard to picture in 2022, by the time she's up for reelection, it's hard to picture us still having, these types of restrictions, or really any restrictions, right? Like these have been pretty targeted to slow or stop the spread of COVID. We have this vaccine coming online. And it's hard for me to know really at this point how relevant that will be in the minds of voters by the time we get to the election.
Let's hope that it's behind us by that time. But with that, are you getting any inside knowledge or scoops from some of your sources about Gordon stepping down?
I wish that I were. So we have a lot of feelers out. I know that we're not the only news organization that's poking around on this in Lansing right now, but we are poking around on it. I've asked the governor about it in a one-on-one, I think last week. And, I'm paraphrasing, but what she essentially told me was there's nothing more to the story here, which made me even more curious because I'm a reporter. So when you tell me there's nothing to the story, I tend to think there's more to the story. Sorry, just my cynical.
Right. And it starts with, oh, did you fire him or did he resign? Did he get a severance package? If so, what is said a severance package? It's like at the end of the day, it's our tax dollars and our knowledge. And you want to say and sit up there and talk about transparency? Well, be transparent. If you fired the guy, simply say, hey, I fired the guy. Why? Well, he was a lawyer. We probably shouldn't have had him in that position to begin with, but I did it as a favor, through the DNC and the Obama administration. Like, just be honest. He was a lawyer. He wasn't a health guy. It's like, but if he's being paid, then we should know that. Or did he just quit that day? Did he resign or did he fire? It's a yes/no question.
I haven't really heard actually some of the speculation that you just raised, but I think we'll get the financial details. I mean, that's all available through the Freedom of Information Act. Everyone I think is actively seeking that at this point. I think that what's kind of up in the air is whether we'll get the backstory. I think what made me suspicious initially was, first of all, that he announced it on his Twitter, was where the news broke. That's not typical. Whitmer's office is pretty good at controlling a message. And then secondly, that the press release came out and basically barely mentioned him. So he got like one sentence at the end. And of course, the whole press release was about the new director she appointed. So, I think that there's certainly there's got to be a reason that the reshuffling happened. And I think everyone's trying to get to the bottom of that right now. But I'm not sure that it's connected to a broader anything broader than what's the dynamics within the department and the governor's office.
Yeah, but what you said there was interesting. Her office is pretty good about controlling the message. We've seen that play out here in the city of Detroit with Mayor Duggan as well. But that's a conversation for a different day. Just another minute or so with you here. Before we let you go, tell us about your cookie business.
Yeah, like I say, some people come home and have a glass of wine at night. I come home and bake a batch of cookies. So I have had, just this little business where I come home and to cool off and release some of that creative energy, spend time in my kitchen, which is a very safe place to be alone during a pandemic. And it's been really nice to be a part of people's celebrations. It's easy to forget in a year like the year we've had that there are still babies being born and people having birthdays and people having milestone celebrations and weddings even. And just to be like a tiny part of all those things has given me a much brighter outlook in a pandemic year that I might have had otherwise.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And Emily, I think you're selling yourself short because you've actually been able to not just bake cookies, because usually what I would do is always give my sources cookies. But what they didn't know is I was buying them from Kroger and putting them in these cute packages because I can't bake. Like I tried to bake some for our firefighters and our police officers recently, and they were just the cut and slice ones, and I overbaked them. So you're selling yourself short because you're not only going home and baking cookies, but you turned it into a business.
Well, give me a call out next time. I'd love to help those police and firefighter cookies.
So, but is it enough to actually run a business, or is this one of those things where it's kind of a hobby and a small business too?
Yeah, so the state of Michigan cottage food law, I know it's a weird that I have an overlap between like a policy background or a policy covering background anyway, and cookies. But yeah, the cottage food law actually caps your income from cottage food businesses like my cookie business at $25,000. So it's more of I would say a hobby level thing, but at least it pays for itself. You would be astounded at the amount of equipment that I either have bought or would like to buy to make the most gorgeous cookies.
Well, it's great. Where can they see some of your cookies though? Because these aren't just regular cookies. These are like fabulous cookies.
Yeah, I try to get really creative with the design. So I'm on Twitter at Cookie Press, on Instagram at Cookie Press, and if you search the Facebook for the Cookie Press Lansing, I'll pop right up. And yeah, I'd love to see some of you on there. And I try to share some kind of funny stuff too. So occasionally you'll get like voting reminders with my cookies or fun holiday stuff. So yeah, give me a follow. I'd love it.
We'll definitely follow you. I did see someone on Facebook posted that they got cookies of Bernie Sanders, but also it was like his head, but then the other cookie was his mittens. I was like, I have to have some of those.
Oh man. Well, I haven't done that design yet, but it sounds fun.
You have to do it, especially if you're a political reporter, right?
True.
Well, Emily, it's been great talking to you. We always appreciate your knowledge and your insight. So thank you for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's been great having you. And next up here on the Megacast, since we're talking about cookies, well, we're going to go ahead and continue the conversation. Chelsea Smith will be with us. She's the retail manager of Bakehouse 46 there in Birmingham. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. It's Wednesday, February 3rd. I had to actually look at my calendar to see what day it is. I know yesterday was Groundhog Day, but it seems like every day has been Groundhog Day over the last 11 months. And I will say, I would much rather be at the location where our next guest is. Chelsea Smith with us now. She's the retail manager at Bakehouse 46. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
So Chelsea, the last time you were on, I was just telling you I had to go visit your shop and I was looking for hot cocoa bombs and you guys were sold out. It is like the item to have this winter.
Yeah, that was definitely some madness. I mean, we were making them and just as quick as we were making them, we were selling them out. We had phone calls, fielding phone calls. Like it was a hot cocoa madness for sure.
And I guess we can blame it on Pinterest, but I'm like, where were hot cocoa bombs for the past 20 years?
I know. Well, and TikTok. TikTok's been a real good way to like follow the trends. And everyone kept saying that as we're like pounding them out, like, oh, did we do these last year? I'm like, we weren't even open last year.
So with that, Chelsea, stores and business, restaurants are allowed to reopen. What does that mean for your industry? Because people could still go in and order coffee, right, to go?
Yeah. So for our industry, luckily it didn't impact us too poorly, not being able to have people to come in, like, maybe a restaurant or a bar would be impacted. We've always kind of been a grab and go business, so it was all right. The thing is that we just have these really beautifully curated spaces that weren't being used. So since February 1, every seat has been packed every single day. So we're excited to have everybody in. Obviously, it's a little scary. Just make sure that we're sanitizing. Everyone's staying clean. But we are really excited to have everybody back dining in.
But Chelsea, for someone such as myself, I look at your business, and that's where people go to have like business meetings, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, you're uncomfortable. Oh, you can't really have someone that you're having a business conversation with. Oh, because you couldn't go into a bar or you couldn't go into a restaurant. But a lot of times you don't want to go to those places for a business, so you meet at a coffee house. And that's
we currently have 2 right now.
Right, exactly. It really is the perfect setting as well, because you could sit together, have coffee, which is business appropriate, but also, work on your computer and show thoughts and ideas and programs and things such as that. So I think you're really a vital link to the business world and being able to offer that space.
Yeah, and as a joint venture between Cupcake Station and Blake Farms, we're looking into our business model. Who do we want to be and what is it that we want to be? And we really wanted to take it from that sweet shop to more of a cafe vibe, so that we could, support that coffee in the morning, bagels in the morning, bringing people together over those kind of meeting places. So it's been really awesome.
Or a cupcake in the morning. It's okay.
Yeah. Cake for breakfast. Who cares?
No judgment. That's the beautiful thing about being an adult, right? So with that, though, I know that the last time we talked to you, it was the fall season. And that's when we all think about cider and donuts. How do you take that and transform it into a year-round business?
Yeah, so that's definitely been something that's been our major focus. So how do we pivot in this, pandemic and continue that business going? So typically this is our slowest time, January through February. So what we decided to do is kind of look at, the amount of sales that we get from cider and donuts and what we can do to say that that's our, our vacation money almost, and what we need to do to keep that going every month. So we broke it down. So we had December, we had January, and now we're into February, getting into Q1. So we looked at December and we had, all of the offerings that we could do for Christmas. So we brought in pull apart cakes. We had the hot cocoa bombs, getting into, New Year's, we had hangover brunch kits. We had, celebratory cupcakes for the new year. And then now as we're pivoting into obviously Valentine's Day, we've got, Galentine's Day packs, gentlemen's Valentine's Day pack and ladies' Valentine's Day pack. We've got a really cool, donut bouquet. So we've got all these really great, items that we can keep using to kind of keep the ball rolling on the business.
I love that. A donut bouquet. Nothing says I love you more than a donut bouquet.
Yes. And it's on these long sticks. It's wrapped in tissue paper. It's given to you in a box. It's a real experience.
Are you guys able to kind of cash in on Fat Tuesday as well? Because I know that, Hamtramck is a place to go if you want authentic punchkis, but the line can be crazy. And I would imagine this year is going to be different because people aren't going to want to stand in line like they did before because of COVID. So is there a market there for the Bakehouse 46?
Yeah, so last year we opened up right around that time and we noticed it was a big miss. So we are doing our punchkis this year. And so we've got those on pre-order right now at the website, and we can do pre-ordering on those until February 7th. And then that pickup would be on the 15th or the 16th.
And that's such a great alternative because you don't want the Kroger,
right.
And you get everyone knows, oh, those aren't really original, but you don't want to wait in line in Hamtramck because it doesn't matter which restaurant you go to or which bakery, there's going to be a line. So this is a good alternative.
Yeah, and we really are very close with Blake, so we do a lot of R&D with them. So we've been working on these punchkis for a while, and we got the authentic box, and we're dialing in the exact measurements of every punchki. So they're definitely going to be fresh and ready to go on Fat Tuesday. So.
What flavors are you making? And can you take the calories out for me?
Yeah. So we're removing all calories. We have lemon, raspberry, cherry, custard, strawberry, and there's one more. You're really testing me here.
Is it prune?
No, it's not prune.
Because I'm like, the people that eat prune punchkis, I'm like, what are you thinking? Why would you waste your calories on that?
Yeah, so I actually don't remember the sixth one. It's definitely not prune. But then you can also get a variety pack. So
that's good. So with that, I know you had mentioned you're coming up on your year anniversary. What's it been like for you guys this past year? Because obviously you opened up just before the pandemic hit, and then this entire year has been crazy.
I mean, just to be pretty raw with it, it's been an extreme struggle. Like, it's been the most hardworking year of my life, but obviously it's very rewarding to me. But, this pandemic and getting people to hired help is very difficult, and I'm not blaming anybody for that. And then, we're always short staffed. So we're constantly grinding, and, our managers are putting in 60 to 70 hours a week. So if anyone is listening to this, I do just say that you take compassion when you are in these, restaurants and bars and grocery stores, and anyone who's helping you out. Like, everybody doing this is absolutely pushed to the max right now.
It's so good that you mentioned that, because it is a reminder to all of us that we can get frustrated. I know when I go to Kroger, I feel like they have one checkout person and then everyone is forced to use the U checkout. But it's hard to get employees during this time, and everyone is suffering from that. And the employees that are working crazy hours. Do you anticipate that maybe that's going to lighten a little bit as you go into the summer months, more college kids come home?
I hope so. Unfortunately, we just lost, a couple managers. They were worried due to COVID, because they've got young kids at home and they don't want to bring anything home, and especially with the restaurants opening up again. I hope, as we all do with the vaccines coming and summertime coming, that we can just kind of get a little bit of a break from it. But yeah, it's definitely a light workforce at the moment.
I know that the city of Detroit just announced that they are extending their vaccination program to include restaurant workers and those basically on the front line, such as in industries like yours. Do you think that as more and more people are allowed to get the vaccines here in Oakland County, if that was offered to more people, that it would be easier for you to get employees?
Of course, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who are still very, very concerned about it. And then you have people who are not so concerned about it. But you've got to think about, one of our really great employees, her mother is ill, and, she's putting her life at risk and her mother's life at risk every single day. So I know that if she was able to get the vaccine, she would definitely do that for the care of her mom.
Yeah, and then on top of it, it's not an industry where people can work remotely. I can't bake your cupcakes remotely. I can eat them remotely, but that has to, add to the stress, because so many people, their kids are having to work, school remotely or that hybrid situation. And so, scheduling could get a little crazy too, like where people say, oh, I can only work 3 or 4 hours a day because I have to pick up my kid from school. And
right.
What a crazy time, but it's great.
And also, the other thing that we notice is, if there's an exposure, so say we have a COVID exposure, our immediate reaction is, okay, well, you need to quarantine for 10 days, then you need to get tested, then you need to come in. So not only are we hurting our business, or the people here in the business, but also those people are now at home. Most likely a lot of people aren't getting paid that need to stay at home in this forced quarantine. And so it really is, it's hurting a lot of people, but we're trying to make it through as best as we can, but we do really appreciate everybody out there right now that's working through this.
Yeah, people working, but also the customers that are being gracious during this time and maybe being a little bit extra with the tips, because it is so needed as well. And I know that the governor, we have our politicians who talk about these programs and these grants. I know there was one that was recently issued for some of the people in the restaurant industry. I don't know how much or how many of your employees were able to take advantage of it because you have remained open. Did you have anyone apply for it, and have they actually received any of the funds yet?
Well, like we kind of said last time, most of our employees are like 16 years old, so they're not, really applying for much these days. But yeah,
right. But this one, I think some of the restaurant industry workers could get up to $1,600. So even if they're 16, apply for it.
Oh yeah, we'll have to get that information then.
Right. So that is one of the things, like, keep your eyes open for these programs too. And even some of your staff members, they have the new program for the frontline workers. If, they could get free tuition for college if they don't have a 4-year degree. And
well, that's amazing.
So if you go to Oakland County on their website, a lot of that grant information is on that on the site too. I think some of those deadlines have expired, but they're opening up some new ones. So always look out for that. And it's a great way to share it with your staff as well. But we wish you guys the best of luck. Again, like I said, I've been in there a couple times since our last interview. I love your space. It's beautifully decorated and designed, and it looks welcoming, and the smell is amazing in there as well.
Yeah, there's no better time than coming first thing in the morning when the donuts are cranking out. So
well, Chelsea, anything we didn't ask that you want to add before we let you go?
No, I mean, again, we have punches coming up this Fat Tuesday. We've got a really great Valentine's Day offering. So if you want to check out our website at www.bakehouse46.com, you can place all of your pre-orders there.
Well, good to know. And also I'll be in for my hot chocolate cocoa bomb, because I still haven't had one.
Yeah, I'll save some for the side for you.
Thank you, Chelsea. Again, we appreciate it. Again, Bakehouse 46, they just opened up their location in downtown Birmingham. It's a great location. Swing by, visit them, and give them some love with some extra tips as well. This is the Megacast. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll be joined with the Executive Director for the Pontiac Collective Impact Partnership. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local.
Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Thank you for taking a time out of your Wednesday to be with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios while Mr. Tyler Keefe holds things down for us back there in West Bloomfield. As a reminder, you can catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. You can watch and listen to us on Civic Center TV. You can also tune us in Birmingham Area Municipal Access. If you have cable, the easiest way to find us, Channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T. You can also listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And then today we also want to say thank you to the West Bloomfield Parks Department for allowing us to live stream today's edition of the Megacast on their Facebook page. We so appreciate it. With us next up on the show, Samino Scott. He's the Executive Director for the Pontiac Collective Impact Partnership. It is so great to have you on the show. Samino, for those not aware, what exactly is the Pontiac Collective Impact Partnership?
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here to talk about it. The Pontiac Collective Impact Partnership is an organization that was formed out of the Pontiac Funders Collaborative, which is a group of regional funders that have been engaged in the city of Pontiac, meeting with local leaders, institutional leaders for a better part of the last year. And what they've determined was what was missing was a collective impact initiative where we brought multiple organizations and leaders from those organizations together to work on solving some complex issues that exist within the community. And they subsequently brought me on to lead that effort.
Well, I know you're new to the position and they're lucky to have you. I feel like Pontiac is one of these cities that it's like they get a little momentum and then it's like pause, start, pause, start. What does the future of Pontiac look like?
Well, the future of Pontiac right now is very bright. We're really excited about things that are happening from the office of the mayor to the schools. Some very positive trends are occurring. The school district is now in the black. They're no longer in a deficit. You may recall years ago, they were $51 million in the hole. And so we're excited about that. Also, we have a number of corporations that have moved into the city. So we really view the Pontiac community as a community of opportunity.
There are some great things going on. I think M1 Concourse is really going to help reshape the city of Pontiac and bring some excitement. But you have United Shore, which is, they've changed their name recently. Yes. United Wholesale Mortgage, but now Amazon as well. Yes. But are there any, with some of these new companies and businesses coming in, is there anything put in place for them to hire Pontiac residents?
I don't know if that was a part of bringing them into the community. In fact, I know with Amazon, that wasn't a process. However, there are opportunities for residents to pursue opportunities within those companies. And as a part of our collective impact work, that's something that we are examining as well to ensure that residents of the community of Pontiac have an opportunity to pursue living wage job opportunities. So we have our eye on that.
So as we were talking off air before we came on, I'm from Keiko Harbor, but I used to volunteer in Pontiac. I've covered Pontiac for years. A couple things going on with Pontiac is number one, there is the issue of the crime in Pontiac. I think bringing in the sheriff's department has really helped address some of those issues in Pontiac, because it used to be kind of like a small Detroit. People were afraid to stop at the stoplights. So crime is coming down. However, there is still that image of Pontiac. Yes. How do you try to reshape that and change the narrative about the city? Is that something that's even being addressed with your group?
Absolutely. Between the Pontiac Collective Impact Partnership and the Pontiac Funders Collaborative, which is a separate group, but we are both looking at storytelling and how to tell the story of Pontiac. A story that really consists of a community that has a rich history with respect to our work ethic, our pride, and really being able to share that with the community is something that we are working on at this very moment.
I love that you mentioned that, but I also know that some of these organizations, talking about nonprofits and some of these other organizations through the years, it's been hard for them to get grants because so much focus has been on Detroit. And so when some of these organizations and companies and government entities are handing out grants, Detroit entities were kind of getting that first bid. Is that still the case right now?
Absolutely not. I think we've turned the tide on that. And when you think about the Pontiac Funders Collaborative as an example, you have 9 regional funders that have really looked at the city of Pontiac as a community opportunity, a place where they want to invest. And they have 5 or 6 strategic investment initiatives that they are looking at and funding regularly. So you may have caught some of that through the local media, through the Southeastern Community Foundation or Community Foundation of Southeastern Michigan, but they are regularly engaged with local grassroots organizations and providing funding opportunities.
That is so great. And with that, because I always feel like Pontiac is this gem that's kind of just sitting there, right? And it's in the heart of Oakland County, and all of our communities can't grow and can't thrive if not every community is doing so. I know that previously, just as my years as a reporter, one of the issues having to be with, and I didn't know this until I did a story, was that one of the issues being that if you went to prison and you got out, if you lived somewhere in Oakland County, you got a one-way bus ticket to Oakland County, and that dropped you off in the city of Pontiac. So then that led to an increase of convicted felons within the city of Pontiac, which some people do believe then helped lead to the decrease and sustainability and economic growth in the city of Pontiac. Is that still the case? And are some of those issues being addressed with your organization?
Well, with our organization, we're looking at one of the areas that we are considering is quality of life indicators, right? And you talked about earlier safety. So we're definitely looking at that. We have representatives of the Oakland County Sheriff Department that sit at our leadership table. And so as we sit down as a group to talk about those quality of life indicators, we are certainly thinking through how do we address our returning citizens, and how do we do so in a way that provides them with opportunities for economic mobility when they return home.
Yeah, because we need people to thrive and survive. And I had never thought about it before. And he was talking about code enforcement, because you had so many of these private entities that were going into Pontiac and setting up halfway houses, but doing it in a way that businesses, they're business savvy because they were getting money off of it. They weren't doing it in the best interests of the individual, of the convicted felon, because it just by doing that, they were in, parole violation, because they would be around other people that were convicted felons. And so there are so many different facets of this conversation that you don't think about, but Pontiac needs to thrive and survive. Is there any thought to possibly changing the name of the city of Pontiac? Because we are seeing that across the country, just, with the Cleveland Indians right now.
Well, we have not engaged in a discussion about changing the name. The name Pontiac has a rich history behind it, and so I'm not sure if that's the appropriate approach to take, but we are committed to changing the narrative of how people see Pontiac. And you can see by what you mentioned earlier, the major corporations that are coming into the city of Pontiac, the strides that we are making with our higher education partners, Oakland University, Oakland Community College. We are really committing to looking at what the future holds in terms of workforce development, in terms of education, in terms of training. So more so than changing the name, we want to change the narrative.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, you mentioned it earlier, beginning to tell our story. What happens for the most part is we define Pontiac by where we are, located in one of the wealthiest counties in the country, but we have the community is filled with people who have an outstanding array of talent, And we are looking at partners such as the Pontiac Transportation Museum that's coming into the city. You mentioned the N1 concourse. So just telling the story about those exciting things that are happening about in the community, and really working with our partners, such as you mentioned the Oakland County Sheriff, our human service agencies, our educational partners, to begin to provide opportunities for our young people to thrive.
So how do you get people to start moving back into the city of Pontiac? Because I will say I was downtown this past weekend and I was surprised at the number of empty storefronts in that downtown area, because it seemed like prior to the pandemic, it was really looking good. There were a lot of great restaurants that had opened, but it seems like several of those have closed since then, because these are tough times. But also when, it's the same situation that residents of Detroit face, is that if you have a Pontiac address, you are typically paying higher insurance, car insurance, and house insurance as well, which can make Pontiac less attractive.
Well, there are a number of initiatives that are being discussed around that. I know there's some conversation with the Oakland County Executive Office in terms of bringing some of, or at least one of their departments to the downtown area. But Ronnie, I think you really touched on the impact of COVID, and not just impacting the region, but certainly the city of Pontiac as well. And so as we come out of this, really the essence of our work is collective impact, or working collaboratively with grassroots organizations, with human service agencies, with our education partners, with the Oakland County Sheriff, to develop a comprehensive plan to address some of those issues.
You have such a big job ahead of you. What's on the top of your list to tackle?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing that we want to do is make sure that we engage our community in developing this strategy and implementing this strategy. And so that's one of our first goals, that to reach out to the community, but also really thinking different about how we operate in the city. And I think you touched on earlier about the silos, quite frankly, that people have been operating in, the grassroots organizations, the nonprofits. That's the essence of this work, to bring many of those leaders together, to identify some key initiatives to work on over the course of the next 5 to 10 years to really help this community thrive.
So if someone is watching or listening to this interview, how can they get involved if they are moved by what you're saying and they want to see Pontiac survive?
Yes. Well, the first thing I would have them do is visit our website, Pontiac Collective Impact .org, and then they'll go to the Connect to Us tab, and that'll get an email directly to me, and I'll be happy to follow up.
It is great that someone is finally, I think, by coming together in a collective unit to change the narrative. It's just what you said. You have to change the story, and you have to change the narrative about the city of Pontiac, because it is the heart, really, of Oakland County right now.
Indeed it is. And we want to do everything within our ability to ensure that this once great city reaches its full potential. And we're excited because we have so many people at the table, from the mayor to folks at the county executive level to, again, our education partners. And so we are excited about the potential. The more we meet, the more we learn about exciting opportunities to engage our residents. And that's really the heart of this initiative.
And the other side is there are so many great nonprofit organizations and volunteers, people trying to improve a life for so many people here in the area. And that's great that by having a collective voice, that it will make it a stronger voice. And I'm happy to see that conversation shift a little bit away from the city of Detroit and back to the city of Pontiac as well, because again, we need Pontiac to thrive, for all of us to thrive here in the community as well. Before I let you go, Samino, I have to ask, the Phoenix Center what is going on with that property? I can't keep up.
Yes. Well, I have fond memories of concerts at the Phoenix Center, so I can relate to what you're saying, and what I understand through talking to Mayor Waterman, we are really at the end of the road in terms of coming to an agreement where citizens will now once again have access to the Phoenix Center, and some of the great things that you saw taking place during the summer months years ago, we may be able to revisit. So there's some excitement coming from that, although it has been a long time in the making.
I will say, I know that there was a lot of discussion from people saying that they thought it was ill-placed and that, it broke up Woodward and took people away from the businesses and this, that, and the other. I loved the thought. I've been to a couple concerts there back when the festival used to be in Pontiac. I think it's great. Like, there's so much potential to keep that. So are they planning to keep it as like a venue for people to see concerts and this, that, and the other? Because I will say too, post-COVID, people are going to want outdoor concert spaces.
To your point, it would be a perfect location for that. They already have the pavilion on top. And that is my understanding that in addition to the upgrades that need to occur because of years of neglect, it will one day soon be used as a destination of entertainment for not just people in the city of Pontiac, but people in the region as well.
Well, Samino Scott with us. He's the new executive director for the Pontiac Collective Impact Partnership, a new partnership that you have high goals for the future of Pontiac. So we wish you the best of luck in the future.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Well, it's been great having you on the show. Anything I didn't maybe touch on that you want to add before we let you go, though?
Just want to share that, the real impact here is around the collective impact framework and bringing those those leaders of organizations together. We feel that we can really accomplish anything, and we can get at the heart of changing the narrative of the city of Pontiac, and we're really excited about the opportunity to do so.
Well, we're happy to have you and your organization. So thank you, and best of luck in the future ahead.
Thank you so much for having me.
Samino Scott with us. He's the executive director for the Pontiac Collective Impact Partnership. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we will round out the show by speaking with the founder for Racket Up Detroit. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/containcovid.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. MyBridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thanks for taking time out of your Wednesday to be with us here on the Megacast. Just as a reminder for those that maybe aren't familiar with the show, you can catch previous episodes or even individual interviews if you just go to our website, civiccentertv.com. You can click on the Megacast for the full episodes or the on-demand section for individual interviews as well. But also feel free to check out our social media, give us a like on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. Before we leave you today, we want to go ahead and bring in Derek Aguirre. He's the executive director and founder for Racket Up Detroit. I was watching the video about your organization before we came on the show. I love what you guys are doing. I have worked in the city of Detroit for 20 plus years. I can't believe I haven't heard of your organization. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us about Racket Up Detroit.
Well, Racket Up Detroit we've been around for 10 years. So We've got a nice little history here in the city of Detroit. We're a nonprofit organization which uses the sport of squash as a hook to engage kids in public schools, in particular in Northwest Detroit. Now, squash, the racket sport, is the hook, but it's really about their long-term educational and personal success.
So, Derek, I'm thinking of this conversation. How did it go? Hey, want to come play squash? How did you get some of the kids interested? And like you said, it's not just so much about squash. It's really about all the other things that you offer the kids.
Yeah, a great question. We start with kids in 5th and 6th grade, and we do that on purpose because they're really, it's an age where they are open to new things. Squash was certainly new for most of the students that have joined our program. But from the beginning, we make sure they know that this is not a sports team. They're going to learn to play the game. They're probably going to love it, but they're going to spend a lot of their time working on academics and community service and just getting to become part of a team that is about a lot more than just the sport.
So did you go to the schools to pitch this, or how does it work?
Yeah, we have 5 neighborhood partner schools. And every year we go to those schools, again, to the 5th and 6th grade, to introduce them to the concept. So we let them actually try and hit the squash ball in their gym, which is a little crazy, but that's half the fun of it. And we make the case that this could be the program that helps you achieve your goals in life. If you want to get really good at the sport, we're going to help you with that. If you want to improve in school, we're going to help you with that. So we make the case that this is a kind of a one-stop shop for your own development and enjoyment. It's a ton of fun, and that's clear from the minute that they try to hit the squash ball.
Well, it's a lot of exercise as well, and great exercise at that. When you first went to your school leaders, where did you start, by the way? Which school?
So we're based at Northwest Activity Center currently, which is just off the lodge at 6 and 7 Mile. And we fanned out from there and started working with Schultz Academy and McDowell Prep Academy, 2 historic neighborhood schools in the vicinity of Northwest Activity Center.
And I will say the Activity Center is a great building, a great organization, and it's great that they've been able to keep their doors open in the city of Detroit, because so many other activity centers have not been able to do so. And in that conversation, what did it take to get the buy-in from the parents when you said, hey, I want your kid to play squash?
I think the broader message resonates with most parents, that this can be a vehicle to a lot of things, that it's not about the sport per se. It's really about your own success. And I have not, in almost 20 years of doing this, met a parent who is not all in for the success of their children. So that's the key message up front.
And now that you've been there for 10 years, as you mentioned, how have some of the previous participants helped keep this program going?
Yeah, the key element, I think, to our model is long-term relationships. We start in 5th or 6th grade, but the students can continue all the way through high school. And even then, we support them in their post-secondary pursuits. So for many of them, it's college. For some of them, it's pursuing a career path. And we stay connected to those students, and we look to them to be the next leaders in our organization. So as an example, for many summers, we have been hiring our high school students and our college age students to run our summer program. And we continue that opportunity throughout the school year for those that are local. And the vision long-term is that some of those graduates will actually come back and work full-time in the organization. We're really excited about that moment. It's a couple years away, just in terms of how old our graduates are, but that's the long-term vision, is that those experts will be able to inspire the next generation of students.
And the great thing about this program is it really is about the focus on their academics. How have you been able to bridge this gap for some of these students that are struggling with remote learning right now?
Yeah, it's like everyone else, we've been learning as we go and trying to bring as much creativity and innovation as we can. So of course, we've got lots of virtual programming happening. We use Zoom and other platforms to reach out to students and families that are not comfortable coming in person. We started in late March of 2020 with our virtual platform, and it's been active ever since. For some students, additional virtual engagement beyond what they're doing in school is not ideal. So we've offered an in-person program with all the safety precautions in place since October, and that's really primarily focused on academic support. The Northwest Activity Center has been an incredible partner in that, in helping us to set things up safely and with a great plan to keep everybody healthy and moving forward.
So what are some of the lifelong lessons that students learn from this program?
Yeah, I think early on they discover that they have a community around them. It's their team initially, that literally their squash team with which they travel and compete. But they start to see that there's a whole community of volunteers and certainly the staff and their families that get invested in their success. And I think that's one of the long-term lessons, is that you can try and do it on your own, but you're gonna have a lot more success if you let others in and lean on them and reciprocate, provide support that they need. And that's what we've been doing for 10 years, is building that community. I think that's a really important lesson to take away.
So many nonprofits right now are struggling, just like small businesses and other organizations, because you rely so much on fundraising. What is that side of Rack It Up been like?
Yeah, I think we've been fortunate. We've got a broad base of supporters, individuals, foundations, corporations that understands our mission and is with us for the long haul. And so we've been fortunate to be able to weather the storm pretty well. Unfortunately, we don't know how long the storm is going to last. So we really express gratitude to those supporters and continue to grow our base, because we're all struggling. You know, the businesses are struggling, individuals are struggling, and we want to continue to be able to implement our program. And that requires, again, a growing base of support and the dedication of all the donors that have been behind us for so long.
What has been your involvement in this? Like, when did you and how did you start playing squash?
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan, but I moved out to Boston after graduating from University of Michigan to work for an organization just like this one. It's really what inspired a whole national movement now. It started in Boston in 1996, and it pioneered this idea of using the sport of squash as a vehicle to support kids and families. I was fortunate to work there. My first job out of college, I didn't know anything about squash, but I was, as an athlete growing up, and I got interested, and seventh graders were beating me, and I kind of got invested in, getting better, and came to love the game, but more importantly, came to love the approach to supporting young people, which was really, again, about long-term relationships and sticking with them, through the all the trials and tribulations of adolescence and beyond. And so I had the opportunity to help bring the model here to Detroit in 2010. The model is pretty tried and true. It's been 25 years. There's now 20 organizations like this across the country, and we're one of that network. And so we draw from the success of those other organizations for our own effort here in Detroit.
I will say I'm enjoying the thought that you got into the nonprofit side rather than the squash side, and seeing these young kids beat you.
Yeah, well, I think we all need a hook. We need something that pulls us along through the tough times. Squash has become a big part of my life, and I'm so glad to be able to use it to inspire and motivate and support young people in Detroit.
So are the kids able to actually play right now?
Not yet. We're working on it. I think we're just about to the point where it's going to feel safe. We'll start slow and with all kinds of adaptations. But we've been cautious, I think rightfully so. Northwest Detroit has been particularly hard hit by COVID, and we just have wanted to do it right and do what we can when we can. So we're getting close. We're starting to see activity in other parts of the country around squash, and we feel like we're we're just about there. It's really important because the game is such a spark for our kids. Whether they're great athletes or just playing it to be with their friends, it's really an important critical component of what we do.
Yeah, well, we're hearing so much during this time as well, just about the mental component of playing sports and what that means for so many of these students. So for them, this is an avenue for them to be able to reach out and connect to other people and to find a different sort of family per se, but also to learn and to grow as well.
Yeah, the sport itself has always been a great vehicle for youth development. It's one of the reasons these organizations have been successful. And I think it is uniquely positioned, and we as an organization will be uniquely positioned to use the sport to help recover from some of what we're all dealing with right now. The isolation, the difficulty in finding communities to share exercise with, just the challenges that we're all grappling with. I think squash is going to really help as we come out of this pandemic period.
Watching the video that is posted on your website, some of the students that have gone through the program, they're in college now. What does that do for you as the executive director to know that you are touching so many lives?
It's been 18 years since I started doing this in Boston. It's why I still love the work. It's why I'm motivated to help the organization grow and serve more students. But we're celebrating the successes of young people. I think everyone can share in that because this is really a large scale community effort. And most importantly, I hope that those young people that are succeeding at that level can look back. They're busy now with school and exams and all of that, but I hope they can look back and say, wow, that was worth my time. It really made a difference. And now I'm going to pass that on to someone in the next generation.
But we see so many of these sports, like through the years, like racquetball was the rage for a while, and tennis becomes the rage. Squash has always kind of been in the background. How do you sell people on the game of squash?
Well, the sport, I think, sells itself if you try it. One of the challenges has been that the sport has not been that accessible. Racquetball was a little more common in the United States, but squash is changing. For years, you had to kind of know where to go and had to have certain communities that you're part of in order to even know about the sport. But that's changing in a big way. As I mentioned, there's 20 organizations like ours across the country that are exposing young people in public schools and cities to the sport. And you're seeing courts being built in more places that are more accessible. So I think that once word gets out about the benefits of the game to health, to social development, and even to your own business pursuits, it's going to really take off. And we hope to be part of that momentum.
So where are you able to get your equipment then and find a place to play as well? Because you need a court to play squash, right?
Yeah, we've been operating at Northwest Activities Center for 10 years. It's a historic community center that's a hub for Northwest Detroit. And they have a phenomenal racquetball and squash facility in the health club there. We've been fortunate to have access to those courts. For the average person, it's not so obvious, but there are places, and it's going to get better. The YMCA has been a great resource for racquetball and squash players for many years. In terms of equipment, it's like any other sport. You can really you can buy everything on the internet. We have nice sponsorship opportunities with racket and equipment companies that help us with that. But I think the game has a bright future, and certainly here in Detroit.
Most definitely. So Derek, real quick before we let you go, if someone wants to get their kid involved in this program, how can they do so?
Yeah, the first thing would be to visit our website and learn more about the approach. But the second thing is we right now we're partnered with 5 neighborhood schools in Northwest Detroit, and those school partnerships are key to our approach. So at the moment, it's not broadly available to all students, but we're actually building a new facility in Northwest Detroit. that is going to enable us to serve more young people. And that's a big part of our ambition, is to be able to broaden access to the sport that we love and to the program itself. So I encourage people to stay tuned. That facility is going to be completed this year, and it's going to give us great opportunities to grow and do more.
So, and when you're able to open up that new facility of volunteers, because I know a big part of what you do is about education, do you accept volunteers, and are you looking for them right now?
Absolutely. We use volunteers in a big way in our classroom to help with the academic program. On the squash court, if you happen to have those skills and some experience, you don't have to be a pro, really just some experience and desire to help. That's a big part of our model as well. And really, just reach out. You can find me and our contact info on our website. And we're always looking for people to get involved and spread the word and build connections that can benefit our students.
Well, Derek, it's been great having you here with us on the Megacast, but we wish you the best of luck and thank you for what you're doing for all of the kids and changing and shaping their futures as well.
Thanks so much for your time. So
again, your website is?
It's www.racketup.org. That's RACQUETUP.org.
Derek Aguirre with us here on the Megacast. He's the executive director and founder for Racket Up Detroit. And with that, now we're going to wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Megacast, but we want to say thank you again for tuning in to the show. And again, as always, you can catch myself and Tyler Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon here on the Megacast. And you can catch previous episodes of the show as well as interviews on civiccentertv.com. This has been the Oakland County Megacast.